The Italian Mafia boss and the black divorcee he is now obsessed and won't let go. Joan Starks was not supposed to be here. Not in this uniform. Not with this mop. Not at 34 cleaning floors in a restaurant she couldn't afford to eat in. She worked in silence, gray cleaning uniform, edges neat, hair pulled back, moving through the dining room before the first customer arrived. Her eyes stayed down. Her hands stayed busy. That was the arrangement she had made with herself. Stay small. Stay invisible. Survive the day. Then the manager's voice cracked across the room like something thrown. Starks. Office. Now. Every head turned. Hers didn't. She set the mop against the wall. Straightened her uniform. Look. She didn't know yet that the man who owned this building, owned most of what this city was afraid to say out loud, had reviewed staff files the night before. She didn't know her name had been circled. She didn't know that surviving Aaron Starks had quietly made her the most dangerous kind of woman. One with nothing left to lose and everything still to prove. What happens when the man everyone fears decides the one woman he can't stop watching is the one he'll never let go? Stay with me. Subscribe if you're new here, and tell me where in the world you're watching from. Now let's begin. She had been mopping the same stretch of floor for 6 minutes. Not because it was dirty. Because it gave her something to do with her hands while the morning manager ran through the day's assignments on the other side of the glass partition, and she had learned, the hard way in a different life, that keeping her hands busy kept her face still. Joan Starks. 34. Gray uniform. Hair pinned back so tight it pulled at her temples. She didn't mind the pull. It kept her present. The restaurant was called Zito's. It sat on the kind of street where the buildings had opinions. Tall, dark-faced, expensive in the way that didn't need to announce itself. The interior was all warm wood and low lighting, white tablecloths that Joan laundered and pressed on Tuesday mornings, wine glasses she polished by hand until her reflection looked back at her without apology. She had been here 4 months. Janitor. Invisible. Exactly as planned. The arrangement she had made with herself was simple. Show up early, leave late, speak only when spoken to, and do not, under any circumstances, let anyone see that she had once sat across a boardroom table and dismantled a company's entire financial structure in 40 minutes. That woman felt like someone else now. So she mopped. She polished. She restocked. She learned every corner of this building the way she used to learn balance sheets. Methodically, quietly, completely. She knew which table had a wobble under the left leg. She knew the back kitchen got cold by 9 p.m. and the junior chefs would prop the door open. She knew the wine cellar lock stuck on humid days. She knew things about this building that the people who ran it had never bothered to find out. That was the thing about being invisible. You saw everything. Her routine was precise. 5:45 a.m. Arrive before the first delivery. 6 a.m. Dining room sweep and mop. 7:15 a.m. Kitchen and back corridor. 8:30 a.m. Bathrooms. 9 a.m. Polish glassware if time allowed. Then disappear into the background until closing. She ate her lunch alone. Always the same corner table near the service entrance. The one no one wanted because the kitchen smell was strongest there. She didn't mind the smell. She minded the questions. The other staff were kind enough. Curious in the way people get when they sense a story they haven't been told. A woman her age, educated voice, careful hands, pushing a mop. She answered their questions with smiles. She offered nothing else. It was a Tuesday when she first noticed the numbers. She had been restocking the condiment shelf near the host stand when she overheard 2 waitresses talking in the kind of hushed voice people use when they think no one important is listening. Third slow week, one of them said. Her name was Priya. Young. Kind eyes. Always chewed her pen. Management keeps changing the specials. Nobody knows what this place is anymore, the other replied. Joan said nothing. But that evening after her shift, she sat at the corner table with a notepad she had bought from the pharmacy 2 streets over, and she wrote down everything she had observed in 4 months. Table turnover times. Which dishes came back half-eaten. Which customers had not returned. Which waitress had the highest return rate and why. The temperature of the welcome. The length of the wait. The small failures that added up to a quiet hemorrhage of revenue. She stared at the list for a long time. Then she folded it. Put it in her bag. Went home. It was not her problem. She was a janitor. The first time Aaron came it was a Thursday. She was clearing a trolley near the entrance when she saw him through the glass doors, standing on the pavement outside in a suit that cost more than her monthly salary, looking in. For a moment she thought she had imagined him. Then he smiled. That smile. The one that had once made her feel chosen. The one she had later learned to read the way you read weather. What it meant depended entirely on what came before it. He pushed through the door. Joan. His voice was easy. Familiar. Like they had seen each other last week. She kept her hands on the trolley. Aaron. He looked around the restaurant slowly. Taking it in. Taking her in. The uniform. The trolley. The mop leaning against the wall behind her. Something moved across his face. It was not cruelty exactly. It was satisfaction. This is where you ended up, he said. Not a question. This is where I am, she replied. There was a difference. He didn't notice it. He never had. He straightened his cufflinks. A habit she recognized, something he did when he wanted to remind you of the distance between you. I have a table booked, he said. Business lunch. She nodded once and stepped aside. He walked past her without looking back. She stood still for exactly 3 seconds. Then she returned to the trolley, straightened the bottles, kept moving. Her hands did not shake. She noted that. Small victory. She collected them now. He came back the following Thursday. And the one after that. Always a business lunch. Always a different companion. Always a table with a sight line to wherever she was working. He never caused a scene. He was too careful for that. Too aware of how things looked. But he would find moments. A quiet word as she passed. A look held a beat too long. A comment delivered just below the volume of the surrounding noise. You look tired, Joan. That uniform doesn't suit you. You know this doesn't have to be your life. She responded to none of it. She had learned, slowly, painfully, across years of hoping words would change things, that responding was an invitation. And she was done issuing invitations to that man. What she did instead was work harder. Not for him. Never for him. For herself. Because the only way she knew how to answer people who expected her to crumble was to become unmovable instead. The waitress position opened on a Friday morning. It went up on the staff notice board at 8 a.m. A single printed sheet, plain text listing the requirements. Joan read it twice. Folded her arms. Walked away. She came back at 8:47 a.m. and read it again. Priya found her standing there. You should apply, Priya said. Joan looked at her. I'm a janitor. You notice things nobody else does, Priya said simply. I've watched you. You should apply. Joan looked at the notice again. She thought about the notepad in her bag. The observations she had written and folded away. The problems she had identified and kept to herself because it was not her place. She thought about Aaron's face. That satisfaction. That assumption. She pulled the notepad from her bag. Tore out the page of observations. Attached it to her application. Handed it to the manager before she could talk herself out of it. She got the call that same afternoon. She was in the bathroom corridor when her phone buzzed. She looked at the screen. Looked at the wall in front of her. Then she answered. Miss Starks, the manager said, we'd like you to come in tomorrow. Not for a cleaning shift. She pressed her back against the wall. What time? She said. Her voice did not waver. Neither did she. They gave her a black uniform. Same cut as the other waitresses. Same white collar. Same small silver name badge. She stood in the staff bathroom mirror on her first morning and looked at herself for a long time. Joan Starks. The badge said it plainly. No title. No history. Just her name, which was the only thing the divorce had left her with and the only thing she had refused to grieve losing. He straightened the collar. Went to work. He was not the warmest person in the room. She knew that. Warmth had been trained out of her slowly, across years of learning that openness was a liability in the wrong hands. What she had instead was something quieter. A quality of attention that made people feel noticed without feeling examined. She remembered orders without writing them down. She remembered faces. She remembered that the man on table 7 took his coffee without sugar but always paused before saying so, like he was still deciding. She remembered that the woman who came every Wednesday and always ordered the risotto was eating alone because she was recently widowed, not because she preferred it. Joan could tell by the way she arranged her cutlery for 2 before catching herself. She didn't make a thing of it. She just made sure the woman's water glass was never empty and that nobody rushed her. That was all. But people felt it. And people came back. The changes she made were small at first. She rearranged the condiment station so it didn't interrupt the sight line between the host stand and the dining room, something she had noticed caused a bottleneck during peak hours. She suggested, carefully, quietly to the floor manager, that the specials board be written in a consistent format so customers could read it without squinting. She noticed that the Thursday evening slot was underbooked and mentioned, once without pushing, that a fixed-price menu might bring in the afterwork crowd who wanted a decision made for them at the end of a long week. The floor manager looked at her. Then tried it. Thursday evenings filled within 3 weeks. The restaurant began to change in the way that good things change. So gradually that nobody could point to the exact moment it happened. But the reviews started appearing. Online, in food columns, in the kind of word-of-mouth conversations that happen at other restaurants when someone asks, "Have you been anywhere good lately?" Zito's came up. And again. Returning customers brought new ones. New ones became returning ones. The reservation book, which Joan had quietly noticed was only ever 2/3 full, began to require a waiting list on weekends. The general manager, a precise Italian man named Stefano who wore the same expression whether he was pleased or furious, called Joan into his office on a Thursday afternoon. She sat across from him with her hands folded. Waiting. "The owner reviews staff performance quarterly," Stefano said. "Your name came up." "I see," she said. "You've been here 5 months. You started as a janitor." "Yes." "And you attached a financial observation report to your waitress application." "I did." He looked at her for a moment. "Most people don't do that." "I know," she said. "Why did you?" She considered the question. "Because the problems were visible," she said. "And I couldn't unknow them." Stefano studied her the way people study something they're not sure they've correctly identified. "You're being promoted to senior waitress," he said. "With a pay adjustment. Effective immediately." She nodded. "Thank you." She stood. Smoothed her uniform. Walked to the door. "Miss Starks," Stefano said. She turned. "The owner's name is Raniero Zito. He knows your name." She held his gaze for a beat. "All right," she said. And walked out. She did not let herself think about what that meant until she was in the back corridor with the door closed behind her. Then she stood very still for a moment. Then she went back to her tables. Aaron came on a Tuesday that month. Different from his usual Thursdays. That was the first thing she noticed. He didn't have a companion this time. He sat alone. Ordered water. Watched her work the room. She served him without comment. Efficient, professional, nothing extra. When she set the menu down he caught her wrist. Not hard. Not the way he used to. Just enough. She went very still. "I heard things are going well for you here," he said. His voice was the same careful, reasonable tone he used when he was building to something. She recognized it the way you recognize a smell that belongs to a bad memory. "Your food will be out shortly," she said. She removed her wrist from his hand. Not snatched. Deliberately and without drama. He let go. But his eyes followed her across the room for the rest of his visit. When he left he didn't leave a tip. She hadn't expected one. What she didn't see was Priya watching from the service station. Or Priya mentioning it, carefully with the right words, to Stefano. Or Stefano making a quiet note in a file that would eventually reach a desk on the 14th floor of a building 3 blocks away. Joan knew nothing about any of this. She just kept working. The staff party was Stefano's idea. End of quarter. The numbers were up, significantly, undeniably up, and someone in management had apparently decided that the people responsible deserved an evening that didn't involve tablecloths and other people's dinner orders. It was held in the private dining room on a Saturday night. Joan almost didn't go. She stood outside her apartment for 10 minutes in the dress she had bought. Deep burgundy, simple, the first thing she had bought for herself that wasn't functional in over a year. And had a full conversation with herself about whether she was allowed to want a nice evening. She decided she was. She went. The room was warm and loud in the way that rooms get when people who spend all day being professional finally stop. Music. Food that wasn't being served to anyone. Laughter that didn't have to be managed. Joan stood near the far end of the room with a glass of wine she was drinking slowly and watched her colleagues with the same quality of attention she gave to everything. Not detached, just careful. She was talking to Priya about nothing in particular when the room shifted. Not loudly. But rooms do that when certain people enter them. A change in air pressure. A slight recalibration of where eyes pointed. She turned. He was standing at the entrance. Raniero Zito. She had seen photographs. The restaurant had them, tasteful and distant, the kind used for press releases. She had formed an impression from those. The impression was insufficient. He was tall in the way that reorganized a room around him. Dark suit, no tie, the top button of his shirt open. Tattoos at his collar and the backs of his hands. Ink that disappeared under his sleeves and suggested more beneath. The kind of build that came from something more than a gym. Broad through the shoulders, solid through everything, like a man who had learned a long time ago that the world pushed back and had decided to become immovable. His face was not handsome in any easy way. Strong jaw. Dark eyes that moved across the room with a steadiness that felt less like observation and more like assessment. He spoke briefly to Stefano. Then his gaze moved. And stopped. On her. Joan looked away first. She took a sip of her wine. That's him, Priya said unnecessarily beside her. I know, Joan said. He's looking at you. He's looking at the room. Joan. Priya. Pause. He's still looking at you, Priya said. Joan said nothing. But she did not look back across the room. Not yet. He came to her 40 minutes later. The party had loosened by then. People moving between groups, the music a little louder, the wine a little lower in the bottles. He moved through the room without stopping until he reached the corner where she was standing. Up close he was even more, she didn't have a better word for it. More present. More still. The kind of stillness that in another man might have read as cold but in him read as deliberate. Miss Starks, he said. His accent was Italian-edged. Not heavy. Just there, underneath the English, like something that had never fully left. Mr. Zito, she said. Raniero. Raniero, she repeated. He looked at her the way he had across the room, directly, without the performance of casualness. You turned my restaurant around, he said. Not helped. Not contributed to. Turned around. The staff turned it around, she said. The staff was the same before you arrived, he said. She had no answer for that, so she said nothing. He seemed to find this acceptable. They stood in a silence that should have been awkward and wasn't. I read your observation report, he said. The one you attached to your waitress application. She felt something move in her chest. Not embarrassment exactly. Something closer to exposure. It was presumptuous, she said. It was accurate, he said. Every point. I had my finance team verify it. She looked at him. You had your finance team verify a waitress application? Something moved at the corner of his mouth. Not quite a smile. Close. I had them verify the report, he said. The application was already decided. She studied him. He studied her back. Neither of them looked away this time. I have a proposal, he said. I'm listening, she said. My businesses, all of them, not just the restaurant, have been running with gaps I haven't been able to close. I've had 3 accountants in 2 years. Good ones, technically. None of them found what you found in 5 months as a waitress. He paused. I want you as head accountant across all my operations. The room continued around them. Music. Laughter. The clink of glasses. Joan held his gaze. He thought about the notepad. The folded observations. The numbers she had run in her head every evening because she couldn't stop seeing them. The degree gathering dust inside a memory she had been told to abandon. She thought about Aaron's face. That satisfaction. That certainty that she would not survive. What are the terms, she said. He told her. She listened without interrupting. When he finished she was quiet for a moment. I'll need full access to all financial records going back 3 years, she said. Done, he said. I'll need to attend board meetings. Not as an observer. Done. And I work independently. I report to you directly. No intermediaries filtering what I find. He looked at her for a long moment. Done, he said. She extended her hand. He took it. His grip was firm and unhurried, the kind of handshake that meant what it said. Monday, she said. Monday, he confirmed. She picked up her wine glass. He stayed a moment longer than necessary. Then he moved back through the room. She watched him go. Then she turned to find Priya 3 feet away with an expression that contained an entire paragraph. Not a word, Joan said. I wasn't going to say anything, Priya said. A beat. Monday though, Priya said. Joan almost smiled. Almost. Monday came the way important days always do, ordinary on the outside. Joan wore a white blouse, tailored black trousers, and the kind of quiet confidence that only looks effortless when it has been rebuilt from nothing. She arrived at the Zito Group headquarters at 7:58 a.m. 2 minutes early. She had debated 1 minute. Settled on 2. Early enough to be serious. Not so early as to look anxious. The building was 14 floors of dark glass and clean lines on a street where every address meant something. A receptionist showed her to the 4th floor. A wide, open office space that smelled like fresh paper and coffee and the particular kind of quiet that meant people were working rather than pretending to. Her office was at the end of the corridor. Glass-fronted. Modest. A desk, 2 monitors, a filing cabinet and 3 years of financial records stacked in 12 labeled boxes along the left wall. She stood in the doorway. Looked at the boxes. Felt something unlock in her chest that she hadn't realized was still closed. Numbers. Organized. Waiting. Honest in the way that numbers always were. They didn't apologize and they didn't lie and they did not change their story depending on who was in the room. She set her bag down. Took off her jacket. Started with box 1. She worked through the first week without surfacing much. She ate at her desk. She left late. She came back early. The other staff watched her with the particular curiosity reserved for people who arrive already knowing what they're doing. A mixture of respect and mild wariness. She didn't mind. She had spent years being invisible. She knew how to exist alongside other people's uncertainty about her. By Thursday of the first week she had mapped the full shape of the problem. It was not one problem. It was 7. Overlapping, interconnected, each one feeding the others in a way that had kept the losses looking smaller than they were. A financial ecosystem of quiet failure that someone had either been too incompetent to see or too comfortable to report. She suspected the latter. She documented everything. Then she requested a meeting with Raniero. He kept her waiting 11 minutes. She noted this without irritation. Powerful men made you wait. It was a test she had no interest in failing by reacting to. When she was shown into his office she took in the space and the time it took to cross it. Large, ordered, a desk that was clear except for what was currently being worked on. A window behind him that framed the city like a statement. He was on a call. He held up one finger without looking at her. 1 minute and she sat and opened her folder and waited. His Italian was fast and low and she caught perhaps 1 word in 5. What she caught instead was his tone. Firm. Precise. Not unkind to whoever was on the other end but absolutely clear that the conversation was ending on his terms. He ended it. Set the phone down. Looked at her. You asked for a meeting, he said. I found 7 problems, she said. Pause. My last accountant found 2, he said. Your last accountant found the 2 that were easiest to find, she said. The other 5 were underneath them. He leaned back in his chair. Show me, he said. She showed him. 40 minutes. Every figure sourced. Every gap traced to its origin. Every recovery projection laid out with the assumptions visible so he could interrogate them if he chose to. He chose to. 3 times he stopped her. Asked questions that were specific and informed. Not the questions of a man performing interest but of a man who understood the numbers and wanted to understand them better. She answered each one directly. When she finished he was quiet. How long to close them, he said. The first 3, 60 days. The remaining 4 will take longer because 2 of them involve contracts that need renegotiating. Can you handle the renegotiations? I can prepare the financial case for them. You'll need legal present. All right. He looked at the folder in front of him. Then at her. Good work, Miss Starks, he said. Joan, she said. He looked at her. Joan, he said. His accent shaped her name differently than anyone else's had. She picked up her folder and left before she could think about that. The board meeting was on a Wednesday 3 weeks in. 8 men around a table. Raniero at the head. Joan the only woman in the room and the only person present who had been with the company less than 2 years. She felt the temperature of it before she sat down. Not hostile. Something more subtle. The particular atmosphere of rooms that have never had to make space before and aren't entirely sure they want to start. She sat. Opened her report. The meeting began. For the first 20 minutes she listened and took notes. Then Raniero's operations director, A broad man named Caruso with silver at his temples and the permanent expression of someone who considered most things beneath him, presented a quarterly spending proposal that Joan had reviewed the previous evening. It had a problem. A significant one. She waited. The table received it without question. She waited a moment longer. Then she said quietly but clearly, "There's an error in the projection on page 4. The room shifted. Caruso looked at her the way men like him look at interruptions, with a patience that is not patience. "The figures are correct," he said. "The figures are correct," she agreed. "The assumption underneath them isn't. You've projected a flat utility cost across all 4 quarters, but the third quarter historically runs 18% higher. It's in the records going back 5 years. The proposal undershoots the budget by approximately $40,000. Silence. She kept her eyes on Caruso. He kept his on her. Then Raniero said without raising his voice, "Pull the historical utility records." Someone pulled them. The room was very quiet while they did. The records confirmed it. Caruso said nothing. Raniero looked at Joan. "Continue," he said. She continued. After the meeting in the corridor outside, she heard Raniero behind her. She hadn't realized he had followed, speaking to Caruso in a low voice. She slowed without stopping. "Her observations go into the record," Raniero said. "Every time. Without question. Are we clear?" "Pause." "Clear," Caruso said. Joan kept walking. Her jaw was tight. Not with anger. With something she hadn't felt in a long time and almost didn't recognize. The feeling of being defended. Not rescued. Defended. There was a difference, and it mattered more than she could have explained to anyone who hadn't spent years in a house where her voice was the first thing taken. She found the discrepancy in the 3rd week of her 2nd month. A series of payments, irregular just below reporting thresholds, cycling through 3 different subsidiary accounts, that didn't match any vendor in the system. She sat with it for 2 evenings. Then she walked into Raniero's office at 7 p.m. on a Thursday, the building half empty, the corridor quiet, and set the printout on his desk. He looked at it. Something changed in his face. Not surprise exactly. Recognition. "How did you find this?" he said. "I was closing the gap in subsidiary 3, she said. "It was underneath it." He was quiet for a long moment. "Leave it with me," he said. "Raniero." He looked up. "There's more," she said. "I think there's more underneath this too." He held her gaze. "Find it," he said. She nodded. "Turn to go." "Joan." She turned back. "Lock your office when you're not in it," he said. "From today." She looked at him. He was not asking. She nodded again. And for the first time since Monday of her first week, she felt something she hadn't factored into the arrangement. Unease. Not about him. About how safe she had started to feel. It was a Tuesday evening when he raised his voice. Not at her. He was on a call in his office. The door not fully closed, the corridor empty, Joan passing on her way back from the filing room with a stack of folders against her chest. His voice cut through the gap. Fast Italian. Not loud in volume but hard in edge. The kind of voice that meant something had gone wrong and someone was going to fix it immediately. She stopped. Not a decision. Her body stopped. Her shoulders pulled in. The folders pressed against her chest. Her breath went shallow and quiet, and she was suddenly very aware of the wall beside her. Its solidity, its proximity, the option of it. Then the call ended. Silence. She stood in the corridor for 2 seconds. Laughed, very quietly, just air, and shook her head at herself. Straightened. Kept walking. What she didn't see. The door. Which had drifted 2 inches further open during the call. And Raniero, who had stood to pace as he always did when he was angry, and who had turned back toward his desk in time to see, through the gap, a woman press herself against a corridor wall at the sound of a raised voice. He stood very still. He watched her breathe. Watched her laugh at herself. Watched her straighten and walk on. He said nothing. He sat back down. He stared at his desk for a long time. That evening he sent an instruction to his assistant. All calls that required elevated discussion were to be taken in the conference room on the 3rd floor. Effective immediately. No explanation was given. None was needed. She noticed 3 days later. The conference room. The closed door. The muffled distance of whatever was happening inside. She noticed. She didn't ask. But something in her chest shifted again, quiet and significant, like a lock that hadn't been touched in years moving a single degree. It happened on a Thursday. She had stayed late, later than usual, which was already late, working through a contract renegotiation document that had to be ready by morning. The building had emptied by 9. By 10 it was just the night security on the ground floor and the light under Raniero's door. She had stopped noticing that detail. That was perhaps the first sign. She was at her desk, jacket off, sleeves pushed to her elbows, reading glasses on when he knocked. "Still here," he said. "Not a question." "Contract renegotiation," she said without looking up. "It needs to be done tonight." "I know," he said. "I read your draft." She looked up. "When?" "This afternoon. You sent it to legal." "I'm copied on everything legal receives." "I didn't know that." "How you do?" He came into the office. Sat in the chair across from her desk, the same chair where she had once sat waiting for him. "There's an issue with Clause 7, he said. She pulled the document. They worked through it. An hour passed without either of them noting it. The city outside her window went quieter. At some point the document was finished and neither of them moved to leave. She took her glasses off. He was watching her in that way he had, direct, unhurried, like he had made a decision about where to look and saw no reason to revise it. "You work like you're afraid the numbers will disappear if you stop," he said. She looked at him. "I work like the numbers matter," she said. "They do," he said. "But that's not why you're here at 10 p.m. She said nothing. He didn't push. That was the thing about him that kept catching her off guard. He opened doors and then stood back and let her decide whether to walk through them. "Controlling numbers feels safe," she said finally. Quietly. Almost to the desk. He was very still. "When you couldn't control other things," he said. "Not a question." She looked up. He was watching her with an expression she didn't have a name for. Not pity, not curiosity, not the particular hungry attention of a man cataloging a woman's wounds for later use. Something steadier. Something that looked uncomfortably like understanding. "It's late," she said. "Yes," he said. Neither of them moved. The city hummed outside. He leaned forward slightly, not much, just enough, and she became very aware of the desk between them and the fact that it was not very wide and that she had stopped thinking about the contract document entirely. Her eyes dropped. Just briefly. Just once. She stood up. "I'll have the final version to legal by 8 a.m., she said. Her voice was even. He was proud of that. He stood too. "Joan," he said. She was already reaching for her jacket. "Good night, Raniero," she said. She left. She walked to her car, her old borrowed car that she was saving to replace, and sat in the driver's seat for 4 minutes before she started the engine. Her hands were perfectly steady. She noted that too. But steady hands and a quiet chest were not the same thing. And her chest was not quiet. He called at 11:43 p.m. She was home. In bed. Not sleeping. She looked at the screen. "I owe you an apology," he said. His voice was different on the phone. Closer somehow. "For what?" she said. "I pushed into something that wasn't mine to push into. Tonight. You told me something and I went further than you invited me." She stared at the ceiling. "You didn't do anything wrong," she said. "I made you uncomfortable." "I made myself uncomfortable," she said. "Pause. Regardless," he said. "I want you to know that whatever you choose to share or not share, it doesn't change how I see your work. Or you." She was quiet for a moment. "Raniero." "Yes. You're not like." She stopped. "I know," he said. Gently. "You don't have to say it." She closed her eyes. "Good night," she said. "Good night, Joan," he said. She ended the call. Lay in the dark. And for the first time in longer than she could accurately remember, she did not run a single number in her head before she fell asleep. The calls started the week after the almost kiss. Not from Raniero. From Aaron. The first one she declined. The second one she declined. The third came at 6:47 a.m. on a Wednesday while she was in the car park of the Zito building, and she answered it because she was tired and her guard was lower in the early morning, and she had always been better with numbers than with her own instincts. "You're working for Raniero Zito," Aaron said. No greeting. "Good morning, Aaron," she said. "Joan." His voice was careful. The reasonable voice. The one that came before the other one, always without fail. Do you understand who that man is? I understand who he is, she said. Then you understand that being connected to him is dangerous. For you. She looked at the building entrance. Is that concern? She said. It sounds like concern. That's new. I'm serious. So am I, she said. Don't call this number again. She ended it. Stood in the car park for a moment. Then went inside. She was 3 minutes late to her own desk for the first time since she had started. She noted that. Did not forgive herself for it until after lunch. He came to the building on a Friday. She didn't know until Raniero's assistant, a quiet, efficient young woman named Julia, appeared in her office doorway at 2 in the afternoon. There's a man at reception, Julia said. He says he's your husband. Joan set her pen down. Ex-husband, she said. He's been there for 20 minutes. He won't leave. Joan stood. I'll handle it. Miss Starks. I'll handle it, Julia. Thank you. She took the lift to the ground floor. Aaron was standing at the reception desk in a suit she recognized, charcoal gray, the one he wore when he wanted to look like the most reasonable person in a room. He had his phone in his hand and the particular stance of a man performing patience for an audience. When he saw her, he smiled. The smile. There she is, he said. The receptionist was watching. 2 men near the entrance were watching. Joan crossed the lobby and stopped at a distance that was professional and deliberate, close enough to speak quietly, far enough to make clear this was not a reunion. You need to leave, she said. I just want to talk, he said. 5 minutes. No. Joan. The smile stayed, but something shifted underneath it. I'm trying to be reasonable here. I came here respectfully. I didn't make a scene. You've been standing in my workplace for 20 minutes refusing to leave, she said. That is a scene, Aaron. You just kept it quiet. He looked at her. Something moved across his face that she recognized. The moment when the reasonable version ran out. You don't know what you're involved in, he said. His voice was lower now. This man, what he does, if something happens to you because of your association with him. Nothing is going to happen to me, she said. You don't know that. I know, she said, that the most dangerous place I have ever been was inside our marriage. The lobby was very quiet. Aaron's jaw tightened. I'll come back, he said. Don't, she said. He held her gaze for a long moment. Then he left. Joan stood at the center of the lobby. She was aware of the receptionist. The 2 men near the entrance. The cameras in the corners of the ceiling. She turned and walked back to the lift. Pressed the button. Waited. Her reflection looked back at her from the polished lift doors. She studied it. Straight back. Hands loose at her sides. Face still. Good. The doors opened. She got in. And only in the privacy of the ascending lift did she press her back against the wall and close her eyes for exactly 4 seconds. Then the doors opened on the 4th floor. She walked back to her office. Sat down. Picked up her pen. Found her place in the document. Kept working. Raniero knew by 4 p.m. She had not told him. She found out he knew because Julia mentioned, carefully, apologetically, that the building's visitor log was reviewed daily and that Mr. Zito had been informed of the incident. Joan set her pen down again. This was becoming a habit she didn't like. She knocked on his office door at 4:30. Come in. She came in. I heard you were informed about what happened in the lobby today, she said. He looked up from his desk. Sit down, Joan. I'd rather stand. He studied her. All right. I handled it, she said. I want you to know that I handled it. I don't need the building's visitor protocol adjusted on my behalf or additional security assigned to my floor or whatever you're currently considering. Pause. What makes you think I'm considering those things? He said. Because you're the kind of man who considers those things, she said. And I am asking you, as your head accountant and as a person who has spent years having decisions made for her without her input, please don't. He was quiet. He looked at her in that way he had. Who is he? He said. My ex-husband. I know that. Who is he? She understood the question. Aaron Starks, she said. He runs an import business. Legitimate on the surface. Something shifted in Raniero's expression. Not surprise. Filing. Has he done this before? He said. Come to your workplace. He used to come to the restaurant, she said. To mock me. And now. She considered the word. How he's scared, she said. Raniero was very still. Of me, he said. Of what being connected to you means for his ability to control me, she said. He's not here because he loves me. He's here because I'm no longer where he put me. Raniero looked at her for a long moment. I won't do anything without telling you first, he said. She looked at him. That's all I'm asking, she said. He nodded. She turned to leave. Joan. She turned. If he comes back, to this building, to anywhere near you, I need to know. She held his gaze. It was not a demand. It was the closest thing to a plea she had ever heard from a man who she suspected did not plead for anything. All right, she said. She left. In the corridor she walked slowly. He had said, I won't do anything without telling you first. Aaron had never once said those words. Not once. In 8 years. He kept walking. Aaron came back on a Tuesday evening. Not to the building. To the street outside. She was walking to her car at 7:15 when she heard him behind her. Joan. She stopped. Turned. He was standing 10 feet away. No suit this time. Something more casual. Like he had thought about it and decided casual was less threatening and therefore more likely to work. I just want 5 minutes, he said. You said that last time, she said. I mean it this time. You said that too. He took a step forward. She did not step back. That was new. She watched him register it. I made mistakes, he said. I know that. But what we had, Aaron, was real. It was real, Joan, and you know it. Aaron. He stopped. What we had, she said quietly, cost me 2 pregnancies, my career, my friendships, and 4 years of believing I was the problem. I know you believe what you're saying. I know some part of you means it. That's the part that kept me there so long. He was very still. But meaning it, she said, was never enough. And it isn't now. She turned. I'll have you removed from this street, she said, walking. Don't make me. She did not look back. She reached her car. Got in. Locked the doors. Her hands were on the wheel. They were shaking. Just slightly. Just enough that she noticed. He sat until they stopped. Then she drove. She called Raniero before she reached the first traffic light. He was outside, she said. Pause. Are you safe? He said. I'm in my car. Are you safe? She understood he was asking something more specific. Yes, she said. All right, he said. Go home. I'll handle it. Raniero. I'll tell you everything, he said. Tomorrow. I promise. She breathed. Okay, she said. She drove home. That night she did not open a single financial record. She sat on her sofa with a cup of tea she didn't drink and stared at the wall and let herself feel, really feel without organizing it, how tired she was. Not of working. Of being strong in the specific way that having no choice requires. It was a different kind of tired. And she was only just beginning to name it. Raniero's mother arrived on a Thursday. Joan knew about her. Valentina Zito, mentioned in passing by Julia, referenced occasionally by the staff at the restaurant with a particular warmth that was different from the respect they gave Raniero. She had not expected to meet her. She was in the restaurant. She still came in twice a week, a habit she had kept, a way of staying connected to the place that had given her the first solid ground she'd stood on in years. Restocking the corner shelf near the host stand out of old habit when a woman came through the side entrance. Small. Elegant in the particular way of women who have never needed to perform elegance. Silver-haired, dark-eyed, wearing a cream coat and carrying a paper bag that smelled like something baked that morning. She looked at Joan. Joan looked at her. You are Joan, the woman said. Not a question. I am, Joan said. I am Valentina. She said it simply, the way people say their name when they are entirely comfortable with who they are. I have been wanting to meet you. Mrs. Zito. Valentina, she said. Please. She held out the paper bag. Sit with me, she said. The kitchen will not mind. They sat at the small staff table near the back. Valentina had brought sfogliatelle, layered pastry shells still warm, and she set them between them like an offering and poured coffee from the kitchen pot without asking and sat across from Joan with the ease of a woman who had made herself at home in harder places than this. My son speaks of your work, she said. I hope positively, Joan said. He doesn't speak of much positively, Valentina said. So yes. Joan almost smiled. He is a serious man, Valentina continued. He has been serious since he was very small. When his father died. She paused. Not with grief exactly. With the particular steadiness of someone who has carried a loss long enough that it has become part of their posture. Raniero was 8 months old, she said. He never knew his father. But he grew up in the space that man left behind. A big space. She looked at her coffee. I did not fall apart. I wanted to. But he was small and he needed to see that his mother did not fall apart. She looked up. I think that is why he does not know how to be soft, she said. He only ever saw me be strong. Joan was quiet. You raised him alone, she said. I did, Valentina said. It was the hardest thing I have ever done and I would do it again without hesitation. Pause. He is a good man. He does difficult things. But he is good. Joan looked at her coffee. I know, she said. Valentina watched her. Something is sitting on you, she said. It has been sitting on you for a while, I think. Joan looked up. I'm fine, she said. I didn't say you weren't fine, Valentina said gently. Fine and unburdened are different things. Joan said nothing. Valentina did not push. She broke a piece of pastry. Waited. And Joan, who had not spoken her story to anyone, not fully, not in sequence, not in the way that required going back to the beginning, felt something in her chest shift in the particular way that things shift when they have been held in one position too long. She looked at the table. I was married for 6 years, she said. Her voice was even. Before that I was with him for 2 years. And in those 2 years, the first time he raised his hand to me I forgave him. He apologized. He bought me things. And I told myself it was the argument. The heat of it. That it wasn't who he was. She paused. It was who he was, she said. I just didn't know yet that love isn't supposed to cost that much. Valentina was very still. Joan kept her eyes on the table. He stopped me from working. From seeing my friends. He made me small slowly, so slowly I didn't notice until I was already small. She paused. And when I finally left, when I finally decided that I would rather have nothing than stay, he made sure I had exactly that. He bribed the lawyers. The judges. I left with my name and my pain and nothing else. Silence. Joan, Valentina said. Her voice was soft. There were 2 pregnancies, Joan said. She hadn't planned to say it. It came the way truths come when the door is finally open. Not carefully, not on schedule. I lost them both. She looked up. Valentina's eyes were wet. She did not look away. I see children sometimes, Joan said. At the restaurant. And something, she stopped. It breaks something. Every time. I manage it. But it breaks. He thought about the park. The woman with the little girl. The candy she had reached for in her bag because the child had smiled at her. That open, uncomplicated smile that children give strangers. And the mother's sharp voice. Why don't you give that to your own kid? The child pulled away. The mother not knowing. Just a mother protecting her child from a stranger. But Joan had stood on that path for a long time after they left. She did not tell Valentina all of that. But somehow she felt Valentina understood it anyway. Come here, Valentina said. She reached across the table. Took Joan's hand in both of hers. Joan looked at their hands. She did not pull away. You are not what happened to you, Valentina said. You are what you chose to do after. And you chose to stand up. Every time. That is not nothing, Joan. That is everything. Joan's jaw was tight. She did not cry. She had learned not to cry in front of people. But something in her chest, something that had been sealed for a very long time, moved. Just slightly. Just enough. He doesn't know, Joan said. Raniero. He doesn't know any of this. Valentina looked at her. He knows more than you think, she said gently. And he is waiting, very patiently for a man like him, for you to be ready. Joan looked at her. Ready for what? She said. Valentina smiled. It was the smile of a woman who had seen something clearly and was choosing to let you find it yourself. More coffee, she said. Joan looked at her. Then at their hands. Then she breathed. Yes, she said. Please. She arrived at 8 a.m. Not 7:58. 8. She noticed the difference herself. 2 minutes she had always used as armor, as proof of seriousness. as the small daily declaration that she was not someone who could be dismissed. This morning she had not needed them. She set her bag down, made her coffee, sat at her desk, opened the files, and noticed, quietly without ceremony, that the tight place behind her sternum that had been there so long she had stopped registering it as unusual was this morning approximately 1 degree looser. Not gone. Not fixed. 1 degree. She noted it the way she noted everything. Then she went to work. Raniero was in her office doorway at 9:15. "Do you have a moment?" he said. She looked up. Something in his expression was different. Not closed, he was rarely entirely closed, but more deliberate than usual. The face of a man who has decided to say something and is making sure he says it correctly. "Sit down," she said. He sat. He set a folder on her desk. He looked at it. "I told you I would tell you everything," he said. "Before I did anything." She looked at him. "Aaron Starks," he said. "His import business. It is not only imports." She was quiet. "My people looked into him after the street incident," he said. "What they found," he paused. "I want to be clear that I did not go looking for this to use against him. I went looking because he came to your street and I needed to understand what kind of threat he was." "Tell me," she said. He told her. The shipping routes. The packages inside the legitimate cargo. The network of payments that moved money through 3 countries before it settled. The judges. The lawyers. The divorce proceedings, her divorce proceedings, bought and arranged like a business transaction, every ruling predetermined, the whole machinery of justice that was supposed to protect her running instead on Aaron Starks's money. She sat very still. She had suspected the corruption. She had lived the result of it. But hearing it laid out, sourced, documented, specific, was different from suspecting it. It was the difference between knowing a wound exists and seeing it clearly in light. "There is one more thing," Raniero said. His voice was careful. "He has a girlfriend," he said. "He has had her for most of your marriage. She is aware that he was married. She is currently unaware that he has been attempting to get you back." Joan looked at the folder. She did not open it. "Of course he does," she said. Quietly. Almost to herself. Not with surprise. With the particular exhaustion of having a thing confirmed that you had half known and half refused to know because knowing it fully would have required you to grieve something you were already barely surviving. "Joan," Raniero said. "I'm all right," she said. "You don't have to be." She looked at him. "I know," she said. "But I am." He held her gaze. "What are you going to do with this?" she said. "That depends on you," he said. She studied him. "It depends on me," she repeated. "Everything I do next," he said, "I do with your knowledge. I told you that. I meant it." She looked at the folder. At the city outside her window. At her hands on the desk. "He destroyed my divorce proceedings," she said. "He made sure I had nothing. He stood in this building and on that street and told me I didn't know what I was involved in, while he was running drugs through shipping containers and paying judges to rule against his own wife." Raniero said nothing. He let her say it. "Do what you need to do," she said. "Joan." "I mean it," she said. "Whatever you found, whatever needs to happen, do it." She met his eyes. "But I want to know when it happens," she said. "Not after." "When?" He nodded. "You'll know," he said. "Promise me," she said. He looked at her. "I promise," he said. She picked up her pen. "Thank you for telling me," she said. He stood. "Thank you for listening," he said. He left. She sat with the folder on her desk for a long time. She did not open it. He didn't need to. She already knew what 8 years of her life had cost. She didn't need to read the receipts. Aaron called that afternoon. She almost didn't answer. Then she thought about the folder. About the judges. About 2 pregnancies and a career in 8 years. She answered. "Joan." His voice was different. The reasonable tone was gone. Not replaced by anger exactly, but by something more stripped back. Something that had run out of performance. "I know you've been talking to people about me." She said nothing. "I know what building you work in," he said. "I know who you're working for. And I know that whatever that man has told you." "He hasn't told me anything I didn't already know," she said. Pause. "Be careful," Aaron said. His voice was low. "Is that a threat?" she said. "It's advice." The last time you gave me advice, she said, you advised me to drop the divorce. You said I wouldn't survive without you. She paused. I'm surviving, Aaron. Remarkably well. Joan. Don't call me again, she said. She ended it. Set the phone face down on the desk. Her heart was going faster than she would have liked. She breathed through it. Picked up her pen. Got back to work. He came to the building again 2 days later. This time he did not stop at reception. Joan did not know this until she stepped out of the lift on the 4th floor and found him standing in the corridor outside her office. She stopped. The corridor was empty. How did you get up here? She said. I told them I had a meeting, he said. You don't have a meeting. No, he said. I don't. He looked different up close. Not the composed, cufflink-straightening man from the lobby. Something underneath the surface was showing now. A desperation he had always had but had previously kept below the waterline. I need you to stop, he said. Stop what? Whatever you're doing. Whatever he's doing. I need it to stop. He took a step toward her. Joan, you don't understand what's at stake. I understand exactly what's at stake, she said. For you. For both of us. If this goes where I think it's going. Aaron. Her voice was quiet. Level. If you take one more step toward me, she said, I will have you removed from this building. And I will not be the one doing it. He stopped. Something in her voice had changed. She could see him registering it. The absence of the thing he had always counted on. The flinch. The give. The small collapse that had always told him he had found the edge of her. It wasn't there. You've changed, he said. Yes, she said. He changed you. I changed me, she said. He just gave me a desk and left me alone to do it. Aaron's jaw tightened. This isn't finished, he said. It was finished, she said, the day I signed the papers. You just haven't accepted it yet. She walked past him. To her office. Closed the door. Picked up her phone. Texted Raniero 2 words. Here. The reply came in 40 seconds. Stay in your office. She sat down. She heard voices in the corridor 2 minutes later. Not raised. Just Raniero's voice. Low, even the tone of a man saying something once because he will not be saying it again, and then nothing. Then footsteps. Then quiet. Raniero knocked once on her office door. He's gone, he said. She looked up. What did you say to him? She said. He came in. Sat across from her. I told him that this building, these floors, your office, your car park, the street outside, and any establishment you choose to enter are no longer available to him. She looked at him. And if he doesn't listen, she said. He'll listen, Raniero said. His voice was very calm. The kind of calm that was not the absence of something but the absolute presence of it. Controlled, directed, certain. She believed him. That was the part that unsettled her slightly. Not the belief itself. How quickly and completely she had arrived at it. Thank you, she said. You texted me, he said. That's all I needed. She looked at him. I almost didn't, she said. I know, he said. Old habit, she said. Handling things alone. I know that too, he said. He stood. Joan. She looked up. You handled it, he said. You stood in that corridor and you held your ground. I just moved him out of your way. She held his gaze. Something shifted in her chest. Not the 1 degree loosening from that morning. Something larger. Something that she immediately filed away to examine later when she was alone and could afford to be honest with herself about what it meant. Good night, she said. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. He almost smiled. Good night, Joan, he said. He left. She sat in her office. Looked at the door. Looked at the city. She had spent 8 years afraid of a man. And standing in that corridor today, looking at Aaron Starks and feeling the specific absence of the thing he had always been able to find in her, she had understood something. She was not afraid of him anymore. He was not afraid of him. He sat with that for a long time. Felt like putting down something very heavy. It felt like standing up straight for the first time in years and discovering that she was taller than she remembered. He was not afraid of Aaron anymore. What she was afraid of, and she knew it now, sitting alone in the quiet office with the city going gold outside her window, was something else entirely. What she was afraid of was the man who had just left. Not because he was dangerous, but because he wasn't. Not to her. And she had forgotten. somewhere between the bruises and the survival and the mop and the numbers, that there was a version of fear that had nothing to do with harm. A version that meant, this matters. This person matters. And I don't know what to do with that yet. She opened her laptop, found the financial records, started working. But the numbers, for the first time in a very long time, did not entirely drown everything. She saw it on a Wednesday morning, 6:47 a.m. She was at her kitchen table with her coffee and her laptop, running through a set of figures she had brought home the night before, when the news notification appeared at the top of her screen. She almost dismissed it. Then she saw the name. Joan Starks, businessman arrested in connection with drug trafficking network and judicial corruption charges. She set her coffee down, opened the article, read it, then read it again. The shipping routes, the payments, the judges, the lawyers, all of it, laid out in clean journalistic language that made 8 years of her life look exactly like what it had been. A system, designed and maintained by a man who had told her regularly that he loved her. There was a photograph. Aaron outside what appeared to be a courthouse, surrounded by officials, his face carrying the particular expression of a man who had always believed consequences were for other people and was only now beginning to revise that position. He stared at it for a long time. Then she closed the laptop, sat in the quiet of her kitchen. The coffee went cold. She didn't notice. She was thinking about a courtroom she had sat in 3 years ago. A judge who had not looked at her once during the entire proceedings. A lawyer who had advised her, gently, apologetically, in a way she now understood differently, to accept the settlement. The settlement that was nothing. The settlement that was the point. He sat with all of it. Let it be what it was. Then she picked up her phone and called Raniero. He answered on the second ring. You've seen it, he said. Not a question. You promised, she said. Her voice was even. I know, he said. You said when it happened. Not after. It happened faster than I anticipated, he said. The moment the evidence was submitted, the authorities moved quickly. By the time I knew the timeline, I had approximately 4 hours and I chose to use them, making sure you were not caught in any crossfire. She was quiet. Joan. I'm here. I should have called you at 2 a.m. when I knew, he said. I chose not to because I didn't want to wake you with this in the dark. That was my decision to make and I made it, and I am telling you now that I am not certain it was the right one. She pressed her back against the kitchen counter. He had just told her he wasn't certain. Aaron had never once in 8 years said those words. Had never once considered that a decision affecting her might not have been entirely correct. Are you angry? Raniero said. She thought about it honestly. No, she said. You have the right to be. I know, she said. But I'm not. She paused. I don't have a word for what I am right now. That's all right, he said. You don't need one yet. She looked at the closed laptop. He's been arrested, she said. Yes. The judges. The lawyers. Under investigation, he said. All of them. And the girlfriend? Oz. She's been informed, he said carefully. Of everything. Joan almost laughed. Not with humor. With the specific sound of something that has been wound very tight for a very long time finally releasing one coil. I need to come in, she said. You don't have to. I need to come in, she said again. I need to work. I need the numbers today. Oz. All right, he said. I'll be here. She nodded. Even though he couldn't see it. Raniero. Yes. Thank you, she said. For making sure I wasn't in the crossfire. Silence. Always, he said. She ended the call. Got dressed. Went in. The office was quieter than usual. Or perhaps she was quieter than usual and the office simply reflected it. She worked through the morning without stopping. Figures. Projections. The renegotiated contract that had finally come back from legal. The subsidiary accounts that were now clean and accounted for and running the way they should have been running 2 years ago. She worked because working was honest. Because numbers did not have agendas. Because sitting still today would have meant sitting with everything the news article had laid flat and clean and undeniable, and she was not ready to do that yet. At 2 in the afternoon Raniero knocked. Come in, she said. He came in. Closed the door. Did not sit. He stood near the window, the city behind him gray and bright at once, and looked at her with the directness she had come to recognize as simply the way he was. No performance. No management of impression. Just him looking at her present. How are you? He said. I've been better, she said. I've been considerably worse. He nodded. The article mentioned the divorce proceedings, she said. Yes. People will read that and know it was my divorce. Yes, he said. I'm sorry for that. I could not control what the press chose to include. She shook her head. Don't be sorry, she said. People should know. The whole machinery of it. The judges, the lawyers, all of it running on his money while I sat in that courtroom and believed it was justice. She paused. People should know that it happens. That it happened. He was watching her. You're remarkable, he said. Came out simply. Not as a compliment designed to land. Just an observation. As if he had been thinking it for a long time and it had simply come out. She looked at him. Don't, she said. Don't what? Don't look at me like I'm remarkable for surviving, she said. I didn't survive because I was strong. I survived because the alternative was worse. That's not remarkable. That's just math. He was quiet for a moment. I'm not looking at you because you survived, he said. She held his gaze. Then why, she said. He took a breath. Because you came in here today, he said. After everything that was in that article. After everything it confirmed. And you opened your laptop and you worked. Not because you had to. Because it's what you chose. He paused. Because you are someone who keeps choosing, Joan. Even when choosing is the hardest thing. That's what I see when I look at you. The room was very quiet. She looked at her desk. I lost 2 pregnancies, she said. It came out the way things come out when a door has been open long enough. Not carefully, not on schedule. She had not planned to say it. She heard it leave her and could not call it back and found after a moment that she did not want to. Raniero went very still. She kept her eyes on the desk. During the marriage. From the fights. She paused. I never said that to anyone except his mother. I've never said it out loud too. She stopped. I don't know why I said it just now. I do, he said. She looked up. He had not moved. He was standing exactly where he had been, near the window, the city behind him, but something in his expression had shifted into something she did not have a precise name for. Not pity. Not the careful management of a difficult emotion. Something raw. Something that looked, if she was reading it correctly, and she had spent enough time studying this man's face to trust that she was, like grief. His grief. For something he had not been there to prevent and could not now undo. Raniero, she said. I heard you, he said. His voice was very low. I'm all right, she said. I know you are, he said. You're always all right. You make yourself all right. He paused. I just need a moment. She stared at him. A man who ran an empire. Who had removed her ex-husband from a corridor with a single conversation. Who conducted board meetings in 2 languages and never raised his voice above what was necessary. Needed a moment. Because of what she had just told him. She felt something in her chest break open. Not painfully. The way things break open when they have been sealed too long, and the seal was never the right solution anyway. There's something I need to tell you, she said. He looked at her. I've been afraid, she said. Not of you. I want to be clear about that. Not of you. She paused. Afraid of this. Of whatever this is. Because the last time I trusted someone with all of me, he used every part of it. Raniero was very still. I know, he said. And I know you're not him, she said. I have known that for a long time. I've known it since the phone call. Since the board meeting. Since the corridor. She looked at her hands. I've known it since your mother sat across from me and told me you were waiting. A beat. She told you that, he said. She said you were waiting very patiently for a man like you. Something moved in his expression. Complicated. Almost, soft. She is not wrong, he said. Joan looked at him. I'm not finished being afraid, she said. I want to be honest about that. I don't think it goes away because I name it. No, he said. It doesn't. But I am, she stopped. Found the word. I am choosing to be afraid and stay anyway. Because I think, she paused. I think you are worth being afraid for. The city hummed outside. Raniero crossed the room. Not quickly. The way he did everything, deliberately with full knowledge of what he was doing. He stopped in front of her desk. He did not reach for her. He looked at her. "I need you to know something," he said. "Tell me," she said. "I have not." He stopped. Started again. "After Ava, I decided that I was finished with the kind of wanting that costs more than it returns. I decided it was cleaner to be alone." He paused. "And then you walked into a staff party in a burgundy dress and stood in the corner of the room drinking wine you were making last all evening, and I looked at you and something in me that I had decided was finished wasn't." She looked at him. "I'm not easy," she said. "I know," he said. "I flinch at raised voices," she said. "I work at 10 p.m. because the numbers feel safe. I will not be managed or handled or decided for. I will push back on you in board meetings in front of your entire team, and I will not apologize for it." "I know all of that," he said. "And," she said. "And," he said, "I have never in my life wanted anything more than I want the version of you that comes with all of those things." She looked at him for a long moment. Then she stood up, came around the desk, stood in front of him. He was very close. Closer than the almost kiss. This time she did not step back. She reached up, put her hand against the side of his face. He went completely still, like a man who had been waiting for something for a long time and did not want to move in case it stopped being real. She looked at him. "Okay," she said. "Just that. Just fae." He turned his face slightly into her hand. "The smallest movement. The most significant one." He said. And the city outside kept moving. And the numbers on her desk waited. And Joan Starks stood in the afternoon light with her hand against the face of the most powerful man she had ever met and felt, for the first time in longer than she could measure, entirely and completely safe. Not because he was powerful. Because he had waited. Because he had kept every promise. Because when she had needed a moment he had given her a moment, and when she had needed to be defended he had defended her, and when she had handed him the most painful thing she carried he had needed a moment of his own. Because he was, underneath everything, a man who had also been broken by someone and had chosen, like her, to keep going anyway. Two people taught by loss. Finding each other in the afternoon. Choosing. Things did not change overnight. She would not have trusted it if they had. What changed was smaller than that and more significant, the texture of ordinary days. She still arrived at the office at 7:58. She still worked late when the numbers required it. She still pushed back in board meetings without apology. But now, sometimes at the end of a long evening, there was a knock on her office door. And he said, "Come in." And he came in. And they worked in the same room, him at the chair across from her desk, her at her monitors, without needing to fill the quiet. She had forgotten that quiet could be something other than the absence of arguing. She remembered now. Sometimes he brought food. Not as a gesture. As a practical observation that it was 8:30 and she had not eaten since noon. She accepted it without making it a moment. He offered it without making it a moment. That was the thing about them. They had both been through enough to know that the moments that mattered were rarely announced. She flinched once. 3 weeks after the afternoon in her office. A supplier had come in for a meeting. A large man, loud in the way some people are without knowing it, his voice filling the conference room before he had finished sitting down. She had been mid-sentence. She felt her shoulders pull. Felt the old instinct move through her. And then, before she could laugh it off, before she could straighten and continue, she felt Raniero's voice enter the room. Not loudly. Precisely the opposite. He spoke to the supplier in a tone that brought the temperature of the entire room down by several degrees. Calm, even the kind of quiet that made everyone else quiet too. The meeting continued. After, in the corridor, she fell into step beside him. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Do what?" he said. She looked at him. He looked back. Straight-faced. She shook her head. "Thank you," she said. The supplier was being unnecessarily loud, he said. It was unprofessional. Raniero. Yes. Stop. All right, he said. She almost smiled. She let herself. Just this once. In the corridor. Where no one important was watching. He called Diane on a Saturday morning. She had been thinking about it for weeks. The number was still saved. 3 years old. She had not deleted it. She had not let herself think too carefully about why. The phone rang 4 times. Then, hello. Joan closed her eyes. Diane, she said. It's Joan. Silence. 1 second. Joan. Diane's voice broke on the single syllable. Not with anger. Not with the careful distance of someone who had been hurt by an absence. With the specific sound of someone who had been waiting and had not let themselves stop. Hi, Joan said. Her voice was steady. Her eyes were not. Where are you? Diane said. Tell me where you are. I'm home, Joan said. I'm good, Diane. I'm actually good. I looked for you, Diane said. After the divorce, I called the number I had and it was disconnected and I didn't know. I know, Joan said. I know. I'm sorry. Don't apologize, Diane said. Don't you dare apologize. Just tell me you're safe. I'm safe, Joan said. Pause. Can I see you? Diane said. That's why I called, Joan said. They met at a cafe 2 days later. Diane was already there when Joan arrived, sitting at a window table, hands wrapped around a cup, watching the door with an expression she tried to arrange into something casual and failed entirely. Joan pushed through the door. Diane stood up. They looked at each other across the cafe. 3 years. Everything that had happened inside those 3 years. Everything that had been lost and rebuilt and lost again and rebuilt again. Diane crossed the cafe in 4 steps and held her. Joan stood inside it. She did not pull away. She did not manage it or contain it or file it for later. She just stood there and let herself be held by her oldest friend and felt, for the length of that moment, every year of the absence and every year of the friendship before it and the fact that both of those things were real and both of them mattered. You're thinner, Diane said into her shoulder. You're louder, Joan said. Diane laughed. Joan almost did. They sat down. They talked for 3 hours. Joan told her, not everything, not yet, but enough. The marriage. The divorce. The restaurant. The building with 14 floors. The man who had needed a moment. Diane listened the way she always had, with her whole body, leaning forward, interrupting only to say no or Joan or what in the specific tones that meant she was feeling everything being said. At the end Diane reached across the table. I'm here, she said. I'm not going anywhere. Whatever you need. Joan looked at her hand. Actually, she said, there is something. Anything, Diane said. I need a bridesmaid, Joan said. Diane stared at her. Joan Starks, she said. It's not. You buried the headline, Diane said. You sat here for 3 hours and you buried the headline. I needed context, Joan said. You needed, Joan. Diane's face was doing several things at once. Tell me everything. From the beginning. Leave nothing out. Joan picked up her coffee. We'll need more of these, she said. I'll get them, Diane said, already standing. Don't move. Don't say anything. I want to hear all of it. Joan watched her go to the counter. She sat in the window of the cafe. The afternoon light was doing something particular with the street outside. She looked at it. And allowed herself, quietly without announcement, to feel happy. Just that. Just happy. In a cafe. On a Saturday. Like a woman who was allowed to have things. She bought the car on a Thursday. It had been on her list for months. A practical list, a numbered list, the kind she made for everything that required moving from one state to another. 1. Stabilize income. 2. Clear debt. 3. Build emergency fund. 5. Car. She had reached 4. The dealership was 20 minutes from the office. She went alone. She had considered asking Diane. She had considered, briefly, warmly, mentioning it to Raniero. But this was not a thing for company. She knew that without having to think about it too carefully. The salesman showed her 3 options. She had already done her research. She knew which one. Navy blue. 4-door. Clean interior. The kind of car that did not make a statement but held its ground. She sat in the driver's seat while the paperwork was being prepared. Put her hands on the wheel. The leather was cool. The interior smelled like something new. Like something that had not yet accumulated anyone else's history. She looked at the dashboard. Thought briefly about a car that had been offered to her once. During the divorce. A gift attached to a chain. A car that would have had his name on the documents. His money. His terms. He thought about that car. And then she thought about this one. Her money. Her name. Her terms. A car that came without a bruise. Clean. Entirely hers. The salesman came back with the documents. She signed her name. Joan Starks. No one else's. She drove out of the dealership and onto the street, and she did not cry and she did not make it a moment and she did not call anyone. She just drove. Both hands on the wheel. Windows down. The city moving past her. And somewhere between the dealership and the first traffic light she permitted herself one thing. She smiled. Fully. Without managing it. The kind of smile that had nothing to do with anyone watching. Just Joan Starks. Moving through the city. In her car. On her terms. Going home. Valentina cried at the engagement. She was not a woman who cried easily. Joan had learned this. But when Raniero called her and held the phone out so Joan could hear her voice, there was a quality to it that Joan recognized. The sound of something hoped for arriving. "Come for dinner," Valentina said. "Both of you. This weekend. I will cook everything." "You don't have to," Joan started. "Joan," Valentina said. "Yes. Let me cook for you," she said. "Let me do this one thing." Joan was quiet. "All right," she said. They went for dinner. Valentina had cooked everything. The table was set with the particular care of a woman who understood that a meal was never just a meal. It was a declaration of how much the people sitting at it mattered. At some point during the evening, Valentina reached across the table and took Joan's hand. "I want to tell you something," she said. Joan looked at her. "The first time I saw you," Valentina said, "in the restaurant. You were restocking that shelf near the host stand and you didn't know I was watching. And I watched you for a moment. The way you moved, the way you handled things, the care you took with something that wasn't even your job anymore. And I thought, this woman has been through something. And she's still here. Still careful. Still choosing to do things well." She squeezed Joan's hand. "I thought, my son needs to know this woman," she said. "Not because she is impressive. Because she is real. And he has been surrounded by things that were not real for too long." Joan looked at their hands. "Thank you," she said. "For that afternoon. In the restaurant. For listening." "Thank you," Valentina said, "for talking." Across the table Raniero was watching them both. He said nothing. But his expression was the most open Joan had ever seen it. Like a man watching something he had not dared to want. His mother and the woman he loved sitting at the same table holding hands, and finding that it was real. That it was actually finally real. The wedding was on a Saturday in October. Small. Deliberate. The kind of wedding that knew exactly what it was celebrating and did not need a crowd to validate it. The venue was a room Joan had chosen herself. Warm stone walls, tall windows, afternoon light that came in golden and stayed. Diane stood beside her. In a dress Joan had chosen with her on a Tuesday afternoon that had turned into dinner and then dessert and then a long walk back to where they had parked because neither of them had wanted to stop talking. Diane, who had spent 3 years not knowing. Diane, who had kept the number. Diane, who had come to the cafe and listened and gotten up for more coffee and said "I'm not going anywhere" and meant every word. She stood beside Joan now with her flowers and her careful mascara that was already doing less than it should and her expression that kept threatening to become a full cry and kept being pulled back by sheer force of loyalty. Joan looked at her. "Don't," Joan said. "I'm not," Diane said. "Your face is." "My face is fine." "Diane." "I'm fine, Joan, let's focus on you. You're crying." "I'm not crying, Diane stopped. "Okay, I'm crying a little." Joan looked at her. And laughed. Out loud. In the quiet room. Before her own wedding. Then laughed too. And for a moment they were just two women in a warm room laughing the way old friends laugh. Without explanation, without performance from somewhere real. Then the doors opened. And Joan straightened. And Diane straightened. And Joan Starks walked into the room. He was standing at the end of the aisle. Dark suit. No tie. The top button of his shirt open because he was, underneath the empire and the tattoos and the city that moved around him, a man who found ties unnecessary in moments that were already serious enough. He watched her walk toward him. He did not look away. Not once. She watched him watch her and felt, not the nervousness she had braced for, not the old instinct to measure a man's expression for danger, just the particular warmth of being looked at by someone who saw you. All of you. The capable parts. The broken parts. The parts that were still healing. The parts that flinched and laughed it off. The parts that worked at 10 p.m. because numbers felt safe. The parts that had loved badly and lost quietly and rebuilt slowly and chosen, kept choosing every morning in small and large ways, to still be here. He saw all of it. And he was still standing there. She reached him. He looked at her. "Hi," she said. Quietly. Just for him. Something moved in his expression. "Hi," he said. She took his hands. They were steady. So were hers. The officiant spoke. Valentina sat in the front row with a handkerchief she had brought knowing she would need it and was already using. Diane stood to Joan's left trying to hold it together and failing beautifully. The afternoon light came through the tall windows and did what afternoon light does in rooms where something true is happening. When it was time for the vows, Joan looked at Raniero. She had written hers herself. Late at night. At her desk. Because some things required the same conditions as the numbers. Quiet, honesty, no one watching. "I spent a long time," she said, "believing that love was something you survived. Something you managed. Something you made yourself smaller to fit inside." She paused. "You showed me, without announcing it, without making it a speech, that love is supposed to make you larger. That it is supposed to give you a table in the room and a voice at the meeting and someone who lowers the temperature when the room gets too loud." She looked at him. "I am not finished healing," she said. "I want to be honest about that at the beginning so that you know what you are choosing. I flinch sometimes. I work too late. I will push back when I think you are wrong, and I will not always be easy to love." She tightened her hands around his. "But I will be here," she said. "I will choose this, choose you, every morning. The way I have learned to choose myself. Deliberately. With full knowledge of what I am doing." She breathed. "You waited," she said. "I know what that cost a man like you. And I will spend a very long time making sure you know it was worth it." The room was very quiet. Raniero looked at her. His jaw was tight. Not with anger. With the specific effort of a man who does not show his feelings easily and is currently losing that particular battle. He took a breath. "I decided," he said, "a long time ago that I was finished wanting things that didn't stay." His voice was low. Even. The accent underneath the English more present than usual. The way it got she had learned when he was saying something that mattered. "I built walls that were very effective. I was very comfortable behind them." He looked at her. "And then you attached a financial observation report to a waitress application," he said. A sound moved through the room. Laughter. Soft. Warm. Diane made a noise that was somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Joan looked at him. Something was happening to her face that she had no interest in managing. "You were the most inconvenient thing that ever happened to me," he said. "You walked into my restaurant and turned it around, and then you walked into my boardroom and told Caruso he was wrong, and then you walked into my life and I..." He stopped. "I had been finished," he said. "And then I wasn't." He looked at their hands. "I cannot promise you easy," he said. "My life is not easy and I will not pretend otherwise. But I promise you this. Every decision that concerns you will be made with you. I will keep my word. Every time. I will lower the temperature when the room gets loud. I will give you a desk and leave you alone to work, and I will come back at 8:30 with food because you forget to eat." Joan made a sound. "And I will spend," he said, "however long you need showing you, not saying showing, that the things you carry are safe with me." He looked at her. "All of them," he said. She looked at him. Both of them in the afternoon light. Both of them with everything they had survived present in the room. Not as shadows but as the reason they understood what they were standing in. The officiant said the words. They said yes. And yes. And yes. After. The room warm and full and loud in the way rooms get when something good has happened and no one wants to leave. Diane had fully abandoned the mascara situation and was showing Valentina photographs on her phone. Joan at 24 laughing at something off camera before everything, and Valentina was looking at them with an expression of quiet, complete joy. Raniero was beside Joan. His hand at the small of her back. Not possessively. The way you hold something you are grateful for. She was talking to one of his associates. A conversation about something she would not remember later. And she was aware of him beside her the way you are aware of solid ground. Not because you are thinking about it. Because it is simply there. Reliable. Present. Hers. At some point Diane appeared at her elbow. "Joan," she said. Joan turned. Diane's eyes were red and her mascara was gone and her flowers were slightly crushed and she was the most beautiful sight Joan had seen all day. "I have something to tell you," Diane said. "What?" "You deserve this," Diane said. "I need you to know that. You deserve every single part of this day." Joan looked at her. "I know," she said. And she meant it. That was the thing. He meant it. Not as a performance. Not as something she was working toward believing. She meant it the way she meant the numbers. Completely. Cleanly. Without apology. Joan Starks. Who had survived a marriage that broke her in silence. Who had cleaned floors in a restaurant she couldn't afford to eat in. Who had attached a financial observation report to a waitress application. Who had stood in a corridor and held her ground. Who had sat in a staff bathroom at 6 a.m. and straightened her collar. Who had folded a notepad page and kept it and then unfolded it at exactly the right moment. Who had flinched and laughed it off and kept going. Who had lost things that could not be recovered and built things that could not be taken. Who had sat in a brand new navy blue car with her name on the documents and smiled, fully without managing it, at a traffic light. Who had opened a door she thought was sealed and found on the other side of it, a man who had needed a moment. Who had chosen. Who kept choosing. Who was still here. Still here. Still choosing. And for the first time in longer than she could accurately measure. Entirely, completely, undeniably. Home.